So, lads, the Fever are officially in the playoffs right now. After a crazy season,
Playoff, Dub!
That's how we flinch, baby!
We can't, W! Playoff! Yeah! Playoffs, baby!
The Indiana Fever have officially punched their playoff ticket, but it came in one of the most bizarre scenes you'll see all season. A blowout win over the Washington Mystics, an arena half empty, and clock malfunctions turning the game into a comedy sketch. Fans expected fireworks, but instead got silence. The question is, what does this mean moving forward? What do you think? Does clinching in an empty arena still feel historic? Or does it lose some shine? Let's be real. This game was supposed to be a celebration. A playoff berth doesn't happen every day for the Fever. This was their moment to flex and say, we've arrived. And yet, when the cameras panned the arena, you could hear echoes. So much for the sellout, the broadcasters claimed. If that was a sellout, then my living room has been at max capacity every time I invite two friends over. This game proved two things. First, Caitlin Clark's absence changes everything. And second, the WNBA still struggles with optics. The Fever may have secured a 94-65 blowout, but the atmosphere was flatter than a soda left open overnight.
Start of the season, you would have given him no chance to make the playoffs. If you would have said Caitlin Clark plays 13 games and she is healthy for none of them. Caitlin's injured the entire season. She plays 13 games at about 50%. If you had said DeWanna Bonner quit on the team after 6 games. If you had said the Fever were going to get a hardship replacement for Caitlin, and then, if you were to say Fever were going to get a hardship replacement for Caitlin, and then her and Sid Colson were going to get injured for the season in the same game, and then if you had said that like they were getting hardships, so if you were saying the both point guards, and they're not even hardships, like Ari McDonald is a hardship, Odyssey Sims is a hardship for a hardship, and then Shea Petty is what? 5th hardship for hardship.
Now let's break down how we even got here. The Fever entered the night knowing one more win would secure a playoff berth. They carried momentum after sweeping the Chicago Sky and looked locked in. On paper, it was theirs to lose. The Mystics, meanwhile, were limping into the matchup, a team that teased playoff hopes earlier in the season before collapsing spectacularly down the stretch. Lifeless is the best way to describe them. From the jump, Indiana didn't mess around. Kelsey Mitchell came out aggressive, even if her shot wasn't falling consistently. She ended with 10 points on 4 of 10 shooting, which doesn't scream superstar, but her tone-setting mattered early. The real difference makers, Natasha Howard, Aerial Powers, and Aaliyah Boston. Natasha Howard finally looked like a seasoned vet who remembered how to play basketball. She gave them 17 points and 7 rebounds, making the Mystics pay inside. For a player who's been up and down all year, this was the perfect time to wake up. Aerial Powers added 15 off the bench, her energy keeping the Fever from letting up as the lead ballooned. And Aaliyah Boston, a classic double-double, 12 points, 11 rebounds. She makes it look routine at this point. Then there was the role player brigade. Shea Petty dropped 13. Doika Dantes chipped in 9. And Citron even snuck in 17 points to remind everyone that yes, the Fever have more than one weapon when they choose to use them. Kiki Erie often added 11. And Lucy Olsen, familiar to Iowa fans, played 15 minutes and scored 4 points. That's called balance. But let's circle back to the arena, because this is the real story. Announcers can call it a sellout all they want, but the camera doesn't lie. Rows of empty seats, entire sections missing fans. Even the sound was hollow, like a scrimmage more than a playoff clinching showdown. Why? Because fans bought tickets months ago, expecting Caitlin Clark's return. And when the Fever announced she was being benched for the rest of the season, those tickets went straight to resale sites or sat unused.
I mean, she's so crafty with her shot decisions. Out right to the hoop.
And here's where the sarcasm kicks in. Congratulations, Fever. You just clinched the playoffs in front of, well, your family some interns, and a few lucky souls who probably thought they were at a high school tournament. Historic moment. Barely anyone there to see it live. It's like throwing a party, sending out 500 invites, and only 50 show up because the headliner cancelled. The optics matter. When Clark played, even meaningless regular season games drew 800,000 viewers on NBA TV. Without her, this playoff clinching game will be lucky to sniff 300,000. That's a massive drop. And it's exactly why the league has leaned so heavily on her star power. The product without her is quiet. And about those clock malfunctions, this is becoming a running joke now. How many WNBA games in the last 2 weeks have had extended clock issues? It drags the game, kills rhythm, and makes the whole thing feel second-rate. Instead of celebrating highlights, fans were tweeting memes about referees staring blankly at a scoreboard that wouldn't cooperate. Great job, league. Just what fans want when hyping a playoff run. Now, you can't blame the Fever players. They did their job. They went out there, crushed a Mystics team that looked like it was counting down the seconds until vacation, and clinched a playoff spot. That's what winners do. But the energy, the vibe, was off. This was supposed to be a statement, and instead it became an awkward reminder of what the team looks like without its superstar. It's also fair to ask, was Clark really too hurt to play? Reports keep bouncing around. Some say she was close. Others say the organization shut her down to protect the long-term investment. If she was 90% ready, fans have a point. Shouldn't she at least get playoff representatives? Athletes don't always play at 100%. That's part of the game. The fact the Fever didn't even leave it up to her, that feels wrong. Natasha Howard even hinted earlier that she thought Clark might come back. Clearly, there was some confusion within the team. And confusion breeds resentment. If you're a player giving your all every night and keep hearing mixed signals about your star, frustration builds. Fans feel it, teammates feel it, and the optics worsen. What's wild is how this situation mirrors the Mystics' collapse. The Mystics had promise, pieces, and hype, but they faded badly. And when Indiana had the chance to clinch, they didn't just win. They made Washington look like a JV squad. That's the silver lining for Fever fans. At least your team took care of business. But here's where the narrative gets tricky. Clinching in an empty arena isn't exactly inspiring confidence heading into the playoffs. This team may technically be in, but without Clark, does anyone really see them making noise? Let's be honest, probably not. You can pencil in a first-round exit depending on the matchup. And that's fine, because the bigger picture is growth and building toward next season. Still, it's impossible to ignore the elephant in the room. Without Caitlin Clark, the Fever are just another WNBA team grinding for relevance. With her there, must-watch TV. That gap is massive. And this game, in all its awkward emptiness, was the perfect example. Now, let's get into the psychology of it all, because this is where the Fever's clinch gets both fascinating and frustrating. Fans were hyped for this season, not just because the team had talent, but because Caitlin Clark was supposed to be the face carrying them into a new era. She's the one who moved tickets, boosted ratings, and made Indiana a national conversation. Without her, the Fever look like they are borrowing momentum rather than owning it. And that's the problem. The optics of clinching the playoffs without your biggest star. Yes, you made it in. Yes, you blew out the Mystics. But the empty seats were screaming louder than any box score could. It told fans, without Caitlin, we just there. No matter how many double-doubles Boston racks up, no matter how many times Natasha Howard pretends she's still in her prime, the team is viewed through the Caitlin Clark lens. And the organization knows it. You could almost see the frustration on the Fever bench. Players were smiling, celebrating, clapping after big shots, but deep down they knew who the cameras wanted to pan to. And when they finally cut to Clark signing autographs in street clothes, that's when Twitter lit up. Fans weren't talking about the win. They were talking about her presence off the floor. Think about that. The Fever clinched the playoffs, and the biggest highlight was Clark in sweats giving signatures. That says it all. The Mystics, for their part, looked completely defeated. Earlier in the season, they were a real playoff threat, but by the time this game rolled around, they had nothing left in the tank. No fire, no urgency, no fight. Indiana smelled blood and went for the throat. That's why the score ballooned to 94-65. It wasn't just the Fever playing well, it was the Mystics rolling over like they couldn't wait to check out of the hotel and head to Cancun. And let's not pretend this doesn't add fuel to the conversation about league quality. If the Fever can clinch a playoff spot in a half-empty arena by demolishing a team that looks uninterested, what does that say about competitiveness? Fans notice. That's why the ratings dip when Clark isn't on the court. They are not buying into blowouts that feel more like chores than challenges. Then there's Stephanie White, the Fever's coach, who's going to get showered with credit for leading the team through adversity. Spay me. Let's be clear. Without Clark's arrival boosting the entire franchise, no one's calling this season a masterclass of coaching. Yes, the Fever survived injuries. Yes, role players stepped up. But if Clark had been active, this playoff berth would have felt electric. Instead, it feels like the team stumbled into it while the rest of the league tripped over itself. And don't get me started on the minute distribution. Michaela Timson played barely 5 minutes. 5. In a game halfway through the third quarter, you'd think White could afford to give her young talent real representatives. Instead, we saw the same tired rotation, Dante's logging heavy minutes, veterans soaking up time, and the bench treated like toxic waste. You can't sell a culture of development when you refuse to develop. Fans see it. They are not dumb. Now, let's focus on the sellout claim again, because it's almost insulting. Announcers proudly tossed it out there, but every wide shot exposed the truth. Pole rows empty. Upper sections deserted. Even the lower bowl had patches that looked like someone forgot to invite guests to the party. Fans bought those tickets months ago, thinking they'd see Clark back for the playoff push. And when she didn't return, they stayed home. Can't blame them. If you were told Beyoncé was headlining a concert and instead got a cover band, would you bother showing up? Exactly. The Fever's clinch is historic, sure, but it's also a reminder of just how fragile this team's relevance is. With Clark, they are drawing national buzz. Without her, they are background noise. That's not sustainable, and the league knows it. That's why this game, instead of being remembered for the win, will be remembered for the optics. Empty seats, a muted atmosphere, and a superstar on the bench while her teammates acted like confetti was falling from the rafters. Now, let's talk about the fans who did show up. Bless them, because they tried. The few sections that were full did their best to cheer, to create energy. But you can't fake electricity. It wasn't there. And when Boston scored in the post or when Howard hit a mid-range, it felt more like polite applause than a genuine roar. This wasn't playoff energy. This was preseason energy with a playoff label slapped on it. And then there's the elephant in the room. Does this playoff berth even matter? Be honest. Without Clark, what's the ceiling? A competitive first round? Maybe a miracle upset? Highly doubtful. More likely, the Fever get bounced in the opening series and the narrative shifts straight to next season. What will they look like with a fully healthy Clark? That's already the storyline. The actual playoffs feel like filler episodes until season 2 begins. But hey, the Fever did what they had to do. They played the schedule, won the games, and now they are in. That counts for something. Clinching a playoff spot is better than missing out. It's a step, no doubt, but it's impossible to celebrate fully when the biggest reason you're relevant is sidelined. And speaking of Clark, let's circle back to her situation. Fans are split. Some say the team was right to shut her down for long-term health. Others say she should have played if she was anywhere near ready, because representatives matter. Both sides have valid points. But here's the kicker. The organization handled it poorly. Mixed messages leaked. Teammates hinted she might return. Then suddenly, bam, she's out for the year. That communication gap kills trust. And when fans don't trust the front office, resentment grows. The Fever can spin this playoff berth however they want. But the truth is simple. They are not scaring anyone without Clark. Opponents know it. Fans know it. Broadcasters know it. Clinching in an empty arena just hammered the point home. This was less a coronation and more a cautionary tale. Without their star, the Fever are just another middle-of-the-pack squad. And that's the instant reality check. Celebrate the birth if you want, but don't ignore the bigger picture. The empty seats spoke louder than the scoreboard. The Indiana Fever may have clinched the playoffs, but the story wasn't the blowout win. It was the silence echoing through an empty arena. No Caitlin Clark, no real electricity, and plenty of questions about what comes next. What's your take? Was this a milestone or a mirage? Drop a comment, hit like, and subscribe for more Straight.